Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peoples, today we're going to take a look at the newest expansion for Imperial Settlers from Portal Games. This is called 3 is a Magic Number. As you can tell, it is a small pack expansion, similar to Why Can't We Be Friends? Although they haven't really done a huge expansion. They did Atlanteans, which was slightly bigger than either of these two. But essentially, just like with Why Can't We Be Friends, and to a certain extent, the Atlanteans expansion, this is adding new faction cards into the mix. Atlanteans had a whole other race. This one does not have that. Instead, you get a bunch of new cards to add to each of the existing faction decks, including the Atlanteans, in case you do have that expansion, and you should. And it also adds new cards to the common deck. There's one new event card if you use those. I don't. And also there's a couple of new faction cards for the solo game if you play that. I don't. But I'll still show you what they are and what they do. If you're not familiar with Imperial Settlers, it's a fantastic resource management, card, hand management game using cards for multiple different things. Great artwork. You can watch my full review of it. I talk it up glowingly. It's in my top 10 games, and this is just more content for it, which is usually a plus. So, did I like it or not? Let's go ahead and take a look, and I'll give you an overview. We'll come back. I'll let you know what I think. Three is a Magic Number is the newest small pack expansion for Imperial Settlers. The set comes with new cards for the common deck and each of the faction decks, including the Atlanteans, as well as a new event card and 2 new faction cards for the solo game mode. As per the rules for mixing in previous expansion cards to the faction decks, you must have a 30-card faction and so have to choose which cards you'll play with carefully. You can use every new expansion card and trim out cards from the base set, or you can mix and match cards from every expansion for a more chaotic game. 3 is a Magic Number has a heavy focus on card colors. Many cards reference goods in relation to colors. Brown is wood, gray is stone, red is food, etc. Cards will also reference sets. Most times, a set is just 3 cards of the same color, or mixed and matched colors. So, if you have 7 red cards out, you have 2 red sets, which is 2 sets of 3 and then 1 extra. Alternatively, a card might indicate a set like white, white, red, very specifically. Some feature cards also only count new sets built after that card is built, or just count previously built sets once it is played. In both cases, you'll take a common card face down as a reminder of these things either happening already or as indicating your progress towards the goal. We'll start with common cards that are new to this set. Wood, stone, and food and their appropriate colors show up a lot. There's a card of each type that produces a victory point every round for every set of the corresponding color, as well as cards for each good type that produce extra goods for every set that you have. The Young Couple card is interesting because you choose its color when it is built. And the Hub of the Universe produces 2 or 3 victory points if you have 5 or 7 of the same color in your empire. The Atlanteans prefer the color white because of entrenched societal norms and a lack of immigration, and using Magitech they can actually change the color of their locations. The Rebuilder 3000 changes all foundations to white. The Atlantean Colonist lets you exchange a basic tech for an advanced tech for every white set that you have during production. And the Tower of Heaven gets you tech and workers every time you complete a white set. Barbarians have a focus on pink locations and, consequently, workers. Story's Tent produces a worker and victory point for each pink set that you have. With Bodyguards to hire, you get a bonus resource of the appropriate type when you raise an opponent's location. And City of the Nomads requires that you make sets of black, black, pink, and will get you a sword and either a card or 2 victory points for having done so. The Egyptians like gold and gray. The Valley of the Kings simply produces 1 point for each golden set that you have. The Metropolis of Ra gives you a worker and 2 points every time you complete a gray set. And the Delta automatically gives you 10 points at the end of the game. However, you must subtract 1 for every location that you have that is not gold at that time. The Japanese keep the focus on red and some crazy effects as usual. Baby Boom gives you a worker or a card plus a point each time that you make a red set. Cherry Orchard lets you spend a worker and a food to gain a number of points up to the total of pink and red locations that you have to a max of 6. And Island Port gives you 1 point for every different color in your empire at the end. Finally, the Romans. Line of Fortifications produces a point for every gray-gray-black set that you have. Interrogation Master lets you spend a sword and mercilessly slaughter a worker to draw a common card, and if it's red, brown, or gray, you can build it for free. Otherwise, it becomes a foundation. And Former World Wonder lets you store any number of stones, and it should be noted is both free to build and has a building bonus of 3 stones. There is another event card as well, Spring, with which you choose one of your production locations and gain the good it provides when the card is played. And lastly, 2 new faction cards for the solo game, the Egyptians and the Japanese. That's the newest expansion for Imperial Settlers. 3 is a magic number. So now I have to admit, the thing that I want the most for Imperial Settlers right now is more factions. I can understand why not every single expansion is going to be a whole new faction like the Atlanteans, although I might say, well, it might be kind of cool to wait a little bit longer and do that, and put the cards that would be in here into like another full big box expansion set that has 1 or 2 new factions. But, it is what it is. The release schedule is what it is. And any new content for Imperial Settlers is welcome. And I think that these cards are very interesting in the 3 is a magic number set, despite the awkward name. And just like with the original, Why Can't We Be Friends? But the cards that they introduce here are very cool. So now it's a focus on the colors, as I talked about in the overview. And that adds a little more diversity to the strategies that you can take. Because there's always been cards in the game that give you bonuses based on the colors that you have. So, build this building, now you're going to get a point for every red building that you have, or whatever it might be. Now, that's even more pronounced. Now you have really dramatic effects that you could possibly get, especially with factions like the Japanese, who I'm kind of used to having like very pronounced effects. And actually some cards, like some with the Japanese and others, are having you diversify the colors that you have. So you're not just pounding away at one single color. You're having to have a lot of them if you want to get the most point benefit. As well as the fact that, so the reason why it's named what it is, if it didn't become obvious, was because you have the sets, which are always 3 cards, and most commonly it's going to be 1 color, but some cards require you to have specific sets of like black, gray, or pink, red, or whatever the case might be. And again, so now you have to diversify. But other cards are still telling you to focus. So what do you do? This is more of what I like about the game in a general broad sense, which is that it's giving you different strategies that you can take, and nothing is wrong. Like, there's not a bad strategy to take. It's just, well, is this right for the cards that I have? Is this the most fun strategy that I could do? Is it the most solid that I can do? And I appreciate that. That's one of the things I love about this game the most, is that you have all these different options and different paths to go down, and everything feels perfectly viable. Now, I haven't played this expansion like 15 times. I've played it twice. So I've played Imperial Settlers, I don't know, close to 24 times at this point. So I can't tell you, like, is this expansion, the whole strategies with the colors that this one unlocks, are they like end all be all? Are you more likely to win if you focus on these cards, and so on and so forth? But what I can tell you is that it's enjoyable to me. I will say, as a side note, this is a meta thing, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm being negative here, but this was the expansion that really hit home that I can't just keep mixing all the cards together, which I had been doing. The Atlanteans cards, like the extra cards for the factions, the cards from Why Can't We Be Friends, just boom, right? Put them all together in the faction deck and the common deck, and just have at it. And I didn't care about the chaos. I thought it added a little bit more variety. I mean, definitely. And it was fine for me, honestly. However, maybe I could have played another 5 games and this never would have happened. But the first game of this that we played with the new expansion proved once and for all that you should not do that. That you should go off of what they actually tell you in the rules, which is, and I knew this, which was to take specific cards from the expansion and swap them out so that you have a 30-card deck. It's very specifically catered to that expansion. Or if you really need chaos, you can take specific card sets, like sets of individual cards from different expansions if you want to make it a little more chaotic. But you still need to have the 30-card deck, and there still needs to be that balance there. Because the first game that we played with this new expansion was one faction, the Japanese faction, which is usually a little more difficult to play, a little tougher to get them to have a winning strategy, just destroyed us because they had all kinds of funky synergies going on that shouldn't have been going on in a game played as it's supposed to be with the expansion faction card rules. So that is a thing to note. Maybe you're like that too. I know I've recommended people to do that in the past, so I'm going to rescind that and say do it like they tell you to do it in the rules, because when we did that, it worked fine, and it was a lot of fun, as Imperial Settlers is supposed to be. So, like this expansion, add some very interesting stuff to the mix, like the new faction cards. I like that they didn't ignore the Atlanteans, and that even some of the cards that aren't tied to the color system that they're going for, like the World Wonder that I showed you, a flying machine one for the Atlanteans I didn't show you in the video. Just very interesting cards. So they're tweaking it and throwing interesting things in around the fringes when they can, and I like that, although I have to tell you, I am eagerly awaiting the next faction, whatever it might be. That is 3 is a Magic Number, the newest small pack expansion for Imperial Settlers. Check it out, and if you haven't tried Imperial Settlers, definitely check it out.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.